Oh, well, let's see how long it takes for people to navigate the inferno that is YouTube Creator Studio. Oh, somebody's back. Man, I just can't believe YouTube. Pretty much, David. Yeah, I hit go live and then the little swirly thingy just came on. That's okay. So am I, apparently, Lars. Yeah, say I have no idea. I hit the go live and bad things happened. What's new? It's YouTube. Oh my goodness. So you got the screen relatively centered properly. Let's see. Okay, sound check and video check basically. Everything working. I'm being clear auditorially. Okay. Anyhow, so as you can see, we've had a relatively busy week, and it's been kind of fun. Um, the trip this weekend was less than ideal because of the weather. Um, Friday, a little cold and breezy. Saturday, wet and cold and breezy. Um, that makes things pretty unpleasant and potentially a little hazardous, although we're never going very far from the camper and the heater was running in it, so it was always a reasonable option to bail back to the camper. No, we didn't catch fish. We didn't go fishing. We were out mining this weekend, and Lars with his puns. So I say we checked on that. That's not a bad one, David. Not quite as good as and, but not too bad. Not too bad.
But?
No, can you dig it?
Huh.
Um, so again, we had a nice initial exploration. Um, we got some things done that we were hoping to get done. Other things uh, done better than we hoped, and other things didn't work out very well at all. One of the problems, and it's difficult to ascertain where the issues are. It's probably a combination of more than one. But hey, honey bunny, boy, you're in quick today. So anyhow, we had a map that was presumably surveyed in many years ago, just judging by the style of map, early 1900s sort of thing, that showed the um, patented claims in the area and a um, basic map of the underground workings. There was no details like stopes or anything like that, but basically, this is where the tunnel's supposed to go. This is where the vent shaft is. And so, what we were trying to do primarily this weekend was go out there and locate corner monuments and uh, determine where the workings were underneath, which may or may not give us a lot of help in finding out where any exposures are on surface. I mean, the the tunnel is theoretically about 500 feet beneath our feet, maybe 600, because I think I used 7,000 as my calculation for 400 feet. And we're actually at the camp. My GPS said it was 7,176 feet. So maybe almost 600 feet beneath our feet. Hard to tell. It didn't have elevations on the map. So we went and tried to to mark where it was underneath so we could see what's going on. Interestingly enough, there's actually a road going almost perfectly where I was hanging my ribbons. It's very interesting. Don't know if that means anything or basically pure coincidence. We didn't take much in the way of samples. We went back to the Discovery cabin, or the cabin at the Discovery Monument of the unpatented claim we staked, and I got some samples from that. It's not, I think it's an official Forest Service route, Honey Bunny, but it's not maintained. So I don't know if they call that an access road or just a designated route or whatever. It is not maintained. There's someplace pretty bad, not horrible, but so I'm not exactly sure what the legal status, or shall I say bureaucratic status, of that path is. The one that was on top of the workings was the old road, and the new one, which was literally in some cases only a couple tens of feet over there, was the one that people were using. We did find a number of old workings. Let me kind of draw a little map-like thing here. If we were camped here, and the Forest Service road kind of went like this, the old road and went like this, and well, actually, in this case, I had been parked about here. The flagging basically was doing this. Now, there was a ventilation shaft, which was in the video, that's closed, and it looks so neat and orderly to me that I think it was done deliberately. Theoretically, the underground workings kind of do something like that. Okay? Probably ought to have used a different color. That would have been smart. But why should I change my style? So here's basically the rough map of the underground workings. And what Even noticed over here was a little dump. Then we notice there's another one here and another one here. So there's a number of old, I'll call them prospect pits or prospect trenches, nothing really big. I mean, we're talking significant disturbances, holes 6, 8 feet deep, 10 feet across, stuff like that in this area here. So to me, it looks plausible that this might have been the area that the old timers found showings on surface and then drove this tunnel to attempt to intercept underneath. That's just a guess at this point. One of the things I was annoyed with, there is another claim, got like a stake here, It goes this way. And these belong to the guy I'm working with, and this belongs to someone else. This right here is a monument. I mean, it's an actual survey point. So is this one, and then out here is also another survey point. What I did was took my handheld GPS at here, 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 and here to try and get points that should be on my map and on the surface with known coordinates to try and make sure I had assigned coordinates to those points properly on my map. And yeah, apparently they just plugged it up, honey bunny. So anyhow, when I took the coordinates that I had determined from my GPS and plotted them on the map, and then attempted to come up with the best fit grid that would match that, the east-west worked out really well. Okay. When I took and I used basically that point there and this point here as my baseline for the north-south line, and that point there and that point there is the baseline for my east-west line. And then once I did the calculations and established a grid that I thought was pretty close, then I measured this point and everything else off of that grid. And east-west, it worked out just fine. North-south, not as good. And so that makes it annoying because I don't know. My handheld GPS at pretty regularly was saying, I've got a variance of 10 or 20 feet. We've got a lot of trees there in places, which messes up your precision. I agree, honey bunny. It's very individualistic. The other possibility is, of course, that the old-time surveyor didn't get his points in properly. However, this point, and the one up here were surveyed by a modern surveyor who the claim owner actually knows. He's done a little business with him and knows him personally. So we can do a little research and find out, do we have or can we get precise GPS coordinates of these three positions? If so, then we've got a pretty good basis to start. Now I have a laser range finding theodolite, which I could set up on points like this and shoot with high precision, but I need to know where I'm at and at least one back sight to align the instrument. Okay. And so I need at least two, in this case, 3 is fine, points. Yeah, I've got a Leica laser range finding theodolite. When it was originally made, the MSRP was 30 grand, but because it's been superseded by a lot easier to use technology, my brother picked it up for $200 at a swap meet. We had to provide tripod, new batteries, and all the external accessories. But yeah, quite a deal. Where is the portal to the underground workings? It's way down. Well, let's see. It's that way off the map here, well off the map here, and off of my principal's claims. It is also collapsed. So to enter the underground workings would be a complex and potentially hazardous thing to do because we don't have any cross ventilation. This area it's been stagnant for a while, so you're going to need to carry your own breathing air and everything else while you do the initial explanations. You probably have to open this up to get some decent ventilation. Hard to tell, but a very challenging thing to do. What we're interested in is getting some decent sample. I took one sample from around here. Not sure how good a sample it was. I didn't have a lot of time to dig to where I got to good solid bedrock or anything. I think it's a reasonable sample. Oh, I've got tripods, compass, a few other little things too. I can do a plane table if I needed to. The forest makes life a lot difficult, because you don't have any lines of sight. Let's say the theodolite, it's essentially a transit with high precision. It's electronic. So if I'm shooting from, say, this point to this point, it'll tell me the vertical distance, the horizontal distance, and the slope distance between the reflector on the rod held over here and the instrument on the tripod over here to within 1/100th of a foot, And so that would be a problem in terms of, with trees, but if not, it could do a lot. We're not sure exactly where everything is. We need to get precise numbers for these, if at all possible, kind of work from there. Yeah, we could play stuff like that, but we don't need rough. We need fairly precise because we want to find our claim boundaries. I'm just guessing, but I suspect this owner had an issue with the Forest Service sometime in the past. And therefore, these were put in, they seem to have been put in at the behest of the Forest Service. But we have claims, let's see, kind of like this. And, let's see, we got like that and like that. And so it would be nice to know these other points so we can tell exactly where our claim boundaries are. But it doesn't appear that the Forest Service managed to do that. And we're hoping to get enough precision. Theoretically, there should have been monuments at some time around these points. And hopefully we could find the actual monuments out there. But we shall just have to see. There's a lot of snow in some of this area. This area right here is covered with snow right now. I went yonder looking for these two corners over here. One of them appears to be in an area that's pretty thoroughly covered by down timber. And the other one I just didn't bother looking for just then because I was getting tired and we were getting a little short on time. I needed to pack up and get ready to head out because the original weather forecast was for bad weather moving in around 5 o'clock. So we wanted to get back to the maintained road by then. And so we shall see what we shall see. These are good survey points. We know who did them. We should be able to find out what we need to know from these, and we could work out from there if we have to. But what we're trying to do is find the old monuments, and that's not terribly helpful. So I now have a somewhat corrected grid that we can try and verify and see if we can find any of the old monuments. It is kind of frustrating, but especially when it's like under downed trees. I mean, there might be something that's, hey, Lito, there might be something very easy to identify if it wasn't for the 3 pine trees laying crisscrossed all on top of it. I have a situation like that it could easily be. I don't know. And so say that was one of the things. I got some samples. We found some significant surface workings that looked like that might have been the target for the initial tunnel. And so we need to do more work and sampling here. At the Discovery Cabin, previously when we were there, I didn't have a flashlight, but there's a situation we have this cabin. Well, it's an old log cabin, sort of what's left of it sitting here. You've seen it in the video. This area here is essentially a pit about 8 feet deep with a fair amount of stuff thrown out of it. Right here was a little bit of an opening. And then on the sides, we have some trenching. This short trenches like that. This rock here appears to be siltstone from the Big Belt Formation, some green siltstone. And this in here is more of a crushed quartz, not heavily mineralized. When I climbed down into this pit here to take a sample, I had a good flashlight with me this time. I shined it in here, and this actually has a small tunnel heading this direction. Okay. Don't know how far it goes. My assumption is that they might have been taking it to this quartz zone. And so another thing I need to do is come up there and dig this out a bit. And then with a safety person monitoring, crawl in here and take a look and see what I can see. Okay. I need to be careful of critters. This is basically kind of decomposed bedrock and soil and stuff.
You gotta be careful of bad air.
So no, it's way too short for bad air, little one. You know, I say I'm more worried about critters and just cave-ins. Okay. Once I dig this out a little bit, I'll like stand up on top and jump up and down a little bit and see if anything sloughs off. But I also want somebody else there so that if I'm back in here and it caves in, they can either help dig me out and or call for help. We do have cell service up there. So like Eva could get on the quad, go up to the main road, call for help, and get some people there to help dig me out. And, you know, should be able to do it in plenty of time. But I was not in a good position, or I didn't have enough time to do this in sufficient safety for my happiness. But this zone, they got multiple trenches. There's also some stuff up here, and there's another working over here. And so I'm not sure what's going on here. It's going to take a lot of work to find out, but I did get a sample from that, and I got a sample over here. So we need to get those analyzed. And that'll give us an idea of what may be going on here. And if that zone is decently mineralized, is extremely accessible. Okay. And was it on any old reference map? None that I have, honey bunny. So I say we can check it out. This is on Forest Service land. So getting permission to move equipment in or stuff would be a lot more complicated. The other interesting stuff is sitting on private land. And here's another question I have. Hey, Jim. Yes, Jim, there was. Okay. This looks like broken quartz. I mean, it had been shattered and, just little pieces primarily. Forget about the sample I took over here. In this pit here, I actually just kind of hand picked some quartz out of the side because I couldn't get back to the bedrock underneath the pit in the short period of time that I had available to me. Now, a question I have for everybody on the private claims, this is the top of a mountain. And as such, at times, it apparently gets some very serious winds. And there's quite a number of down trees.
Zillions.
So my question is, does anyone know a good way of making money off of those down trees if they've been down a little too long for firewood? Okay. And so, yeah, the root balls and stuff, absolutely, honey bunny. But the thing is, they're kind of in our way. That would be good, Jim. This area on the patented claims that has the workings is just trees everywhere. It's going to be a real pain in the butt just to get reasonable walking access in there because there's just a lot of trees laying down. It's really kind of a chaotic mess there. And so if anyone has any ideas, let me know. We have access to a sawmill, so we might be able to. I'm not sure how pretty it'll saw up. It might be like some spalted pine or something like that. So I don't know. But if anyone thinks of something, let me know. Yeah, we haven't done much in the way of cutting chunks and looking at it yet. Don't know if we're going to have any tunnels to timber right yet. I don't know if there's any turpentine left in that stuff. It's been down for years. I don't know how many years.
I'm thinking wood chips for mulch.
Is it going to be worth it to haul it off of the top of a mountain? Hey, Chris, how's it going? Trying to figure out which stream to go to, huh? So, I say that's an interesting question that we should be thinking about over time is what to do with all those dead trees. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Jim, what kind of pine trees do we have around here that typically bifurcate? You wind up with two trees growing out of one stump. What are they? Because it seems pretty common around here. I don't recall seeing it anywhere else. No, I do not, Lito. Possibly, Jeff. Not sure. So we have a lot of interesting things to address up there. So we shall just have to see. Access is not the best. The road from the maintained Forest Service road, or plausibly maintained Forest Service road, is, I'm guessing 2 miles, maybe 3, something like that. Not sure. We haven't checked the quality of the wood. We haven't done a lot of stuff yet. So, not sure what to do there. We got a lot of work to do. Plan right now is Friday to head out to Montana B to get another load of ore. I want to take down what I can or all of the lower decline dump now and screen that and take it to the mill. Yeah, this is not standing dead, Jeff. This is laying dead.
Well, we have standing dead too.
We have some standing dead. It's not the stuff that's in my way at the moment. Out at the mill, we have some more questions, but we know exactly what we need to ask. We have the new stripping circuit, which can do 3 cartridges at once. And the solution I used for this test was used solution, and it didn't work as cleanly as stuff in the past. I'm thinking it may be getting poisoned or something. We adjusted the pH, we added some thiourea, but what we're going to do now is, with the cartridges theoretically stripped, I'm going to make another bucket of fresh solution and use try and restrip those same cartridges, and that will let us know whether that old solution worked well. I'll probably keep those 2 buckets like they are and keep using the old solution and playing around with it a little bit. See how long I can keep it working well. Eva, the stuff we recovered from those cartridges is sitting in beakers on the bench drying out, so it should be dry by the time we get back tomorrow, no problem. And she'll be smelting that down, and we'll try to get a good estimate of at least what the first elution did for the in terms of what the loading factor of that resin was. Now, after that, then we need to do the second elution to see whether or not there was stuff still sitting there, and see what happens there. Then we have another 3 cartridges ready to strip. We have a batch of ore in the tank that we can dump anytime we want. It's been there long enough. However, the question there is, why dump it until we have more ore to throw in the tank? So we'll probably wait till next week on that. But I say we got stuff going on everywhere. And so we have lots of stuff keeping us busy in a lot of different angles here. Once we get the lower decline dump cleared out at Montana B, then the next point of attack there would probably be continuing to extend the decline, and see if we can get down to the 40-foot level and what the what the ore grade is while we're doing that. So I say, got loads and loads of stuff that we're doing. And say, never trouble staying busy here. We did everyone like the video on how to make the French toast? If people like stuff like that, I can certainly throw some things in there when we're doing things out in the field in terms of food. Also, I haven't in years, but it's certainly something I could do. Yeah, the nice thing is it's a good tasting French toast, Honey Bunny, and it's low carb. So yeah, and so that's why we take it on the trips. I mean, if we got to get the French swapped out too, little one.
Yep.
Yeah, so many things to do. See, we still have French toast from the trip. Daryl, the stripping is heated to, I think it's 55 degrees centigrade, which is about 135 degrees Fahrenheit. So it is heated, but it's not a high temperature. You know, it is not a complex ore, Daryl. It is it's a highly oxidized material. Here's a sample right here. And the main thing is that it's, hey, Red Wing, extremely fine gold. This stuff runs 80%, 6.8 microns minus. So we're talking, 4 times smaller than talcum powder. And that's why we had to go to the leaching. Okay, it's not that it's refractory from a crystal locked or chemistry. It's just too damn small for gravity separation or flotation. So that's why we're using it. Not for the solution. And that's the advantage. Solution extraction is complementary to gravity extraction or flotation or even amalgamation, which of course you can't use anymore. Really, Lito? That's, man, I hope she was the passenger. So in many ores, of hard rock ores, you'll have a substantial portion of the gold too fine for efficient gravity separation. And as such, a fairly common tactic is to use a gravity separation first to get the big gold, which doesn't dissolve fast. And then, as Honey Bunny mentioned, then you leach the tailings from that process, because that's, say the two work entirely differently, and therefore what works good for one does not work well for the other. But if you do both of them, you get everything, unless you got crystal lock or something like that. That sounds crazy, Lito. But yeah, that's part of the early processes involved in evaluating a project. Is once you've determined whether or not there's enough gold to plausibly look like an ore body, then you have to determine what will get it. We do not bleach to neutral, Daryl. The ore itself, that we're currently processing runs a fair amount of dolomite, and the Eco Goldex itself is already somewhat alkaline. It's fairly significantly alkaline. So we don't have to use much lime to adjust the pH. We try and keep our pH between 10 and 10.5. That's the area that laboratory scale experiments indicate our fastest recovery comes from. What is different about Crystal-Lock? Okay, honey bunny. Let us suppose this happens very commonly in sulfide ores. This is your mass of rock, and you have these gold particles distributed in it. Probably not quite that evenly. Okay. So when you put it in a crushing circuit, you break it into smaller pieces. Okay. Now, if this piece of gold, let's say you have a rock here, and that piece of gold is sticking out on the side, solution can get to it, but a gravity separation won't work because the whole particle has basically the same density as all the rock. If, on the other hand, you break it much smaller, now you get this gold on a much smaller particle. That's more likely to gravity separate, but you generally want to break it free. So you have gold and you have rock. When you do that, this is called mineral liberation. Your valuable mineral, i.e. the gold, is now in separate particles from the rock. They're not combined anymore. And you need to crush it that fine to get a good recovery with gravity or flotation, because if you like gravity this, well, the density is not as severe as it should be, or it could be, and therefore it's not going to do well. If you float, you're going to get a lot of this gangue material still stuck to your particle. Okay. Now, Crystal-Lock is, let's say this is a pyrite cube. Okay. And it's got a bunch of gold particles inside it. This is not porous. That iron oxide I've got is porous. The pyrite is not. So any gold that isn't exposed is completely inaccessible to the solution. That is what you mean by Crystal-Lock. When you've got a particle and the gold is inside it, solution can't get to it. You can't separate it by gravity. You can't float it. Basically, the crystal locks the gold away from your extraction process. And Crystal-Lock is generally with relatively fine gold in a relatively imporous matrix. Okay. Correct, honey bunny. It's you haven't ground it to the appropriate level. And so this is things that have to be determined by testing. This is what you do in the early part of the process. This is the metallurgical testing. You're not determining how much gold, but what works to actually separate the gold from the rock. Okay. That is entirely possible, honey bunny. If you had a rock that had, say, a lot of silica and a small amount of pyrite that was very rich in gold in the pyrite, then yeah, you can crush it and then gravity separate or float the pyrite, because you might as well. You got something that's easy to separate from the rock. Then you could either much more finely grind the pyrite or roast the pyrite or do something like that in order to break it down to where you can get at the gold. if you had a more complex pyrite or a complex sulfide, then you might be able to easily sell it as is. For example, if you had copper bearing chalcopyrite that had a lot of gold, you can sell that to somebody who's going to smelt it for the copper, and they can give you a potential credit for your precious metals, and you don't have to do it. Do you want to grind sulfides before roasting? Probably not too fine. Okay. You want to get it fine enough so that it'll break down in the time period you're using. Probably would depend to a great extent on your throughput and the particular ore. Okay. But if you were running, 2,000 tons an hour, you probably wouldn't have to grind it nearly as fine. If you're doing it on a small scale, you're probably going to want a finer grind and a thin bed thickness to, get what you want. Yeah, sulfides are a fuel. You can also use an enriched oxygen atmosphere to get them to burn with sufficient vigor that they provide a lot of heat to the process itself. Basically, you can get them to ignition temperature, start it burning, and then keep throwing in more sulfides, and they're providing the heat to uh, keep the charge hot. And so that's one of the things you can do also. The finer the grind, the more oxygen, things like that. Again, you want to see what works best for your particular ore. And double check everything. I was talking to somebody today and explaining that nature has this nasty tendency to come up with something you haven't thought of. Roasting would do us no good at all, John, because roasting basically to oxidize sulfides, that's already thoroughly oxidized. Wouldn't provide any assistance. So in our case, no. In other places, it's really important. Generally, where you have unoxidized ores, you got sulfides, iron pyrite, things like that, and you're trying to break that down. If you're trying to recover, say, the lead in a galena or the copper in a chalcopyrite, you do not probably want to roast it because the refiner is going to use that sulfur as a fuel in the process. They're designed to deal with sulfide feed, not oxide feed. I have never heard the phrase vacuum furnace. I have heard the phrase enriched oxygen flash furnace, where they were taking chalcopyrite and was it chalcocite? But anyhow, copper sulfide minerals and roasting them and smelting them in that manner in order to, um, to capture the sulfur oxides. They use an enriched oxygen atmosphere that gives them a sulfur oxide rich flue gas, which can then be easily converted into sulfuric acid, which keeps the air clean and which gives them 6,000 tons a day of sulfuric acid to either sell or use. Paradoxically, it works really well for leaching copper oxide ores. So it's fantastic. Jeff, very happy to have helped out. How well did that improve things? Yeah, if you got sulfides, that's where you look for the roasting when you've got sulfides. Okay, so basically it's a reduced pressure furnace while they're doing that. I say I was unaware of those, but say the oxygen enrichment I was aware. Okay, so Jeff says, little one, your advice to roast my cons was a game changer for my recovery. Thank you for everything. I asked how, what difference it made. It made huge. I roast, grind, roast, and it's easy.
Cool.
And say there's an example where the roasting is really important. It's made a huge difference to him. But generally, roasting is going to apply when you have a sulfide. By the way, roasting ore generates fumes which are by and large anything from bad to extremely toxic. So you have to be quite careful on that. Table salt is added to sulfides in roasting. How much salt? Depends on what you are roasting and why. That would only be the case if you're trying to create a chloride from the sulfide. For example, if you had a lead silver ore, you might be making a silver chloride that's now soluble in sodium thiosulfate, something like that. I'm not terribly familiar with it, but just basic roasting does not require salt. When you're adding salt, you're not just roasting, you are converting from sulfide to a chloride. Jeff says salt did not seem to help him any. Both galena and arsenal pyrite among the calco and iron. Well, I'll tell you this, Jeff, you be really careful roasting that stuff. So you got lead, you got arsenic, get all kinds of bad juju there. So make sure you got really good ventilation.
Yeah.
Okay. Daryl says, I'm by Jerome, Arizona, and they're pulling a huge amount of gold from slag pile in Clarkdale in a process that gives off nitrous oxide. Not sure. I'm not familiar with that process. Anybody else out there, like Chris or whatever? Honey Bunny?
Which sounds nasty.
Yeah, I have no idea. Potentially, yeah. Yeah, that's true, because you need an oxidizing environment and a chloride thing. So you could use basically like a salt leach with some nitric acid, and that would dissolve metallic gold pretty rapidly. It would be essentially a dilute aqua regia. That's a good thought, Chris. Well, when it comes to heap leaching, it's not the chemistry that's different. It's just the physics in terms of how well does the solution get to the gold and how thoroughly it's agitated, which also tends to scrub the surfaces and keep them from pacificating. Chris says nitrate, salt, and hydrochloric acid could do it. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me either. So I say you'd have to actually ask or do a little research and find out what process they're actually using. Yeah, Kodak. I don't think that works well on sulfides. Now, a standing rib, on the other hand, for sure. A little cool air in here. But yeah, roasted elk, that would work. Garlic, absolutely. There's a variety of herbs and spices. Uh, no, that's there's a lot of chemistry. I'd like to try that sometime, honey bunny. Roasted goat, little one. That sounds good, huh?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I'd like to try that. Maybe with a feta cheese salad. Mm. uh, so I say that's kind of where I'm at right now. Again, right now, unlike earlier when it was much colder, I just got more things to do than I got time to do them, as opposed to plenty of time to do stuff and nothing I can accomplish with solid dihydrogen monoxide. So, so I got lots of fun things to do and lots of field work. Um, Probably the rain will kind of taper off here in the next few weeks. Then it's just going to get hot. Six of one, half dozen of the other, huh? John says, I like onions to cook goat and lamb to get rid of the lanolin flavor.
Goats.
Everyone's talking cooking right now.
Ah.
What a shoulder of what, Chris? Is that another goat? Honey Bunny says that goats don't have the musky flavor like sheep do.
Well, full grown sheep will have a little bit of a musky flavor, but I don't have that problem with lamb.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I know I've had goat before and it was okay. Hey, Gordon. Hydrochloric and peroxide to make nitric? Not sure. Um, you could always just use some peroxide and hydrochloric to make a. I know that would make a kind of a poor man's aqua regia thing. I would think because you get oxidation and chloride ions. Oh, Rock is here. He's apparently a goat expert. Depends on the breed of goat or sheep. African goat tastes great, mutton not so much. Then go to Mongolia and the opposite is true. Interesting.
Hi, Rock.
Yeah, Chris says, yeah, it doesn't make nitric, but it will dissolve gold. Daryl says, area in the United Verde paid 40% copper, 220-ounce silver, and 3.5 ounces of gold to the ton. That's got to be a concentrate. 40% copper is a concentrate. Rock says, hi, Eva. I haven't heard anything from that gentleman yet, Rock, but I've been busy, so no big deal. Blame it on the Scottish. Oh, my goodness.
Well, I happen to like actual mutton, but usually as Scotch broth. That is one form in which I usually find mutton does not taste overly muttony.
It doesn't surprise me, Rock. You might want to warn him that there's times I'm out of communication for days at a whack. You know, because stuff. Oh my goodness. Oh, 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 oh. It's funny. I tend to get sleepy in the mornings and during the day, and then at night about 10 o'clock I wake up.
You're finally getting on a normal, civilized person's schedule.
Look who's talking.
Yeah.
I slept a lot last Saturday morning because it was just drizzling. I didn't have anything to read or whatever, so I just went back to sleep, wait for the rain to stop. I do not like working in cold wind and rain. You know, Honey Bunny says I tend to get up at the crack of noon every day. um, but yeah, I slept in pretty late on Saturday. um, yeah, I agree, Chris, with John. If you're putting chloride ion plus something that oxidizes into the ore, it'll dissolve gold. Oh, sorry, Honey Bunny, cold, wet, and windy. You forgot the windy part. That makes it real fun because not only is it colder, but you can't protect yourself from the rain nearly as well. Ugh, very annoying. Luckily, the camper is really dry, and we had the heater running. I was quite surprised that we needed it, but I mean we didn't need it, but it did make it nice and comfortable in there. And because the wind was so intense, normally Eva will use the little vent dome on top to adjust the temperature as there's no thermostat on the heater. And with that wind, it was rattling so badly that she wanted me to open my little side window up just a touch to regulate the temperature. When you got a 20-mile-an-hour wind hitting that side of the trailer, the term just a touch means just a touch.
Yeah, totally.
Silver will tend to precipitate as a chloride. I think copper chloride is highly soluble. Not sure about lead chloride. And yes, lead ores do generally have some silver. So, yeah, silver chloride is a bit of a mess. Yeah, we did that once. We have a video on it, Honey Bunny. The problem with it, we found out, was once you create the silver chloride, then how do you um, smelt it without much in the way of losses? We
It did not
had
work
pretty high
well.
losses.
It did not work well in my assay processes the way regular silver does.
Yeah. We found out that, because what we use the silver for is inquarting. And by, since she's already dissolved the silver in nitric acid as part of the parting process, then she uses uh, cementation on copper to recover the silver, and then it is just ready to inquart again. Yeah, that's what we're doing, Honey Bunny. It gives us a good texture, nice finely divided silver.
Yeah, the silver chloride did not do well.
Yeah, that was not ideal.
In assaying.
Yeah. Plus, if we use the copper to precipitate it from the nitrate, we're now creating copper nitrate, which we can then theoretically recover the nitric acid
And the copper.
and then later the copper and sulfuric acid also. Street Tips, I believe, had the methodology for it, and so
the
we're
other
keep.
guy that Chris sent us the video link to did it.
Was that the other guy? Okay.
Yeah.
But anyhow, depending upon how difficult it is to get various chemicals in the future, we may be doing that because basically nothing in that process was nerd rage. Yeah. Nothing in the process seemed terribly difficult or chemically intensive, except you do need power for an electrolytic cell. You got the power supply and everything, but yeah, we're just stockpiling stuff for now. Like I'm going to be stockpiling the stripping solution for now too. Once I get to where it's not doing a good job, I'll just put it in a bucket, set it off to the side, and continue on. Then we'll worry about that probably next winter. That'd be a good time. Hey, Brian, how's it going? So, at what point does chemistry cost equal your profit of values? At this point, Daryl, the chemistry is not the problem. It is the mining and transportation is by far the most significant individual value, and then followed by labor. The chemistry itself, we're probably looking at $30 per ounce of gold. That's what we're spending on chemicals, somewhere in that neighborhood. So that's not a real issue. Even if we were to be expending the resin and not reusing it, we're not sure if it's good to reuse just yet. But even if we expend it, we're still looking at what? I think it was like $11 in resin holds $1,100 in gold. So it's even if we only used it once and then got rid of it, we're only talking about a 1% cost. So I say that's one of those things that we're determining how efficient it is to reuse it versus to use it one time. And we'll see how that works out. Again, a number of these things may change depending on availability of stuff. For example, if all of a sudden, if using fresh resin is a little bit better than using the recycled resin, okay, that's fine. But what happens if we can't get resin anymore? All of a sudden, it's yeah, that recycling sounds a whole lot better. But what happens if something we need for the recycling part becomes unavailable, What is the cost of drilling, hauling, crushing, and digesting the ore?
About $680 a ton, I think is what we figured last year.
Oh, I don't know. Let me think of what we're doing this year, because that was an estimate where we hadn't actually done it. Now we've done it. So, let's see. We got about and 150 there, 30. Wear and gas. Call that another 200. 350, 850. Currently, at the very small throughputs, that we're doing when we're actually mining the ore, where we're going down into the decline, breaking it, loading it, and hauling it back out again, we're looking probably somewhere in the neighborhood $800 to $900 a ton. With the majority of that, over half of that being the actual mining, because of the slow mining rate of the, with the hard rock. And, to get this much rock, we need to mine that much rock. So that becomes a bit of a constraint. Now, if we're doing an ounce to the ton, then that's, doubling our money, so to speak. So it depends upon recoverable grade. Rock says, Miner Jim, apparently I am now a renowned geologist. That Arizona company put out a press release about my work. I've been called a lot of things, but never renowned.
A renowned geologist. Huh?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, hey, that means they liked him.
Well, we were talking to some people today, and when we were done, I was talking about to Diva. I said, I think we've graduated to eccentric now. Instead of just being oddballs. Because hey, Blindsight, now we're getting a little bit of a reputation and this and that and the other. So now we can be, a respected oddball is an eccentric. So I say maybe we've achieved eccentricity. I wouldn't be surprised, Honey Bunny. But I say that's a lot of that has to do with the mining cost. If we could mine ore like that stuff we did that last trip where I just was shoveling and screening, it could be an ellipse, could be maybe a hyperbole. I mean, not hyperbole, hyperbola, whatever. Sometimes I, participate in hyperbole. Yeah, that's right. It doesn't have to be an ellipse. A camshaft would work. Well, that's what I thought too, Jeff. But I think the wealth gives you the respect. So if fame gives you the respect, then you can be eccentric even if you don't have the money. So anyhow, the stuff we hauled from the dump, on the other hand, that that was only maybe $400 or $500 a ton cost. That's correct. That dump does. The one above it, on the other hand, is much nicer. That's what we're going after this weekend. Okay. And so that'll be nice. We haven't noticed any, Brian. I do not know if there's any issues or not. We are not really doing sufficient analyses on a detailed basis due to financial considerations that we really, in some cases, just don't know what's going on. We're just kind of playing it by ear and keeping it. What the heck is he? You got a little funky thingy there. Anyhow, you get working on false floors. You're a little crazy. I don't do too much on false floors. So anyhow, that's an idea. That's why I recommend that, as a rule of thumb, Half an ounce, 2 feet wide, or 1 ounce, 1 foot wide is probably what you're going to need to have a fair cushion on your break even. Okay. If you got exceptionally good conditions, then obviously it can be less. If you've got moderately bad conditions, you can probably still make a go of it. If you get really bad conditions, even that's not going to be enough. So that's where you got to do all the calculations. And for those of you who are not aware, on my website, hardrockuniversity.com, I think it is.
It's the Wix thing. You got to find the link in your.
Anyhow, I've got a calculator on that. Let's see here. I'm pretty sure it's down near the bottom of this. Urea gold leaching. Wow. I thought I had it at the bottom. Did I put it up near the top?
It may actually be on your bar somewhere, dude.
No. There we go. Oops. Cancel.
Yeah.
Let me open another tab here. I'm going to get the thing here. Where is it? There we go. There. So here's the length. Control C. Back to here. Control V. Okay, there's my website, and on that is a mine value or a mining project economics estimator. And no, I did not, Daryl. That would be nice. I wish I had some. Yeah, Rock, and someone like you or I, we've done it so many times, but somebody who's never done it before, it can get pretty daunting and they can forget things that are important. So that's why I made the calculator.
There's a checklist on there
somewhere. Yeah, I also have a checklist there. So a new project checklist. When you go someplace new and you want to see how it looks, you got a checklist. You just go through, and again, it reminds you what the things you didn't ask. But yeah, that calculator or estimator is free for everyone to use. I also find it interesting to play what if games and say, okay, well, what if the recovery rate changes? What if the mining rate changes? What if the ore grade changes? And that allows you to say, to fairly well define in your brain what's a reasonable range of stuff that might be desirable. And it makes it a lot simpler. It also can show you what you need to focus on. Is it throughput? Is it recovery? Is it cost? Things like that. So it's a valuable tool for approximating things and giving you an idea. So as I say, if you feel free to use that, either apply it to your project with proper caveats. I take no responsibility, but it'll help give you some ideas. That's nice, Honey Bunny, except BLM has different rules for different places. You work in the underground test site in Nevada? Whoa, don't need artificial light, huh?
What underground test site would that be?
Well, I kind of suspect it's nuclear. How many underground test sites in Nevada are there?
You never know what's under Area 51, dude. Remember the movie Independence Day?
Yeah,
That was underground in Nevada
sure.
at Area 51, where the aliens are.
So I say that's another resource that's open for everybody there. And I hope you put it to good use. Hey, Chris, here's something you might know. Up at the top of the hill, we have 3 survey points that were put in by somebody. It's a local surveying firm, and it says Forest Service beyond this point, etc. I'm not sure if it was put in by the claim owner or it's a patented claim. My question is, where would I find the information on those survey points? Okay.
They all be listed as township section range.
I presume either the Forest Service or the guy who owned the claim wanted to know where those corners were. I don't know. It was done, wasn't it the 70s?
1976.
76.
Was the date I saw.
Yeah. Call the surveyor. Yeah, that sounds reasonable, Jim. Who would I get the record of survey from, Chris? Would that be a government agency or from the surveyor, and would there be a fee? Since the claim owner I work for knows this person, he might be able to get the information free and for nothing, but we'll see. No, that pink survey tape was the stuff I was putting up. I'm talking aluminum, survey points in the ground, the little mushrooms with the markings and everything else. Okay, so Chris says should be recorded if it's an official survey. If not, you got to go to the survey company.
So maybe the county recorder's office?
Jim says the surveyor owns the survey and they have to keep records. Okay, so that's the place to start at least. Yeah, it's a local surveyor. He's still extant, or at least the company is still extant. So we'll start with that and see what we can come up with. And it's probably going to be in a format that doesn't tell us a great deal in terms of it's so many feet north or so many feet at this bearing from the section corner, without telling us, okay, what's the exact GPS coordinates of the section corner? But since I'm using a GPS, it would be nice to have, GPS coordinates for all my stuff. Are there mining claims next to yours? On top of the hill, absolutely. And we're surrounded by patented mining claims and Forest Service land. Should have the GPS value nowadays, but if it was done before that, you'll have a lot tougher time. That's my thought. I'd say it was done in the mid 70s. So everything back then was done cadastral survey in general. So I'll have to convert. But even if I just have precise bearings, that's what I was thinking, honey bunny. Yes, I did rock all 3 of the ones that I found. 1976 is when the survey was done, John. Jim says when a surveyor sells or retires, those records go to the county recorder's office unless bought by another survey. Excellent. Thank you, Jim. Do I carry a self-rescuer on you when I go underground? No, I do not. Wow, we're getting a lot of comments going here, Daryl. That's because in most situations, I'm not going into places where I have concerns
about the air quality.
But we do have an
And the term self-rescuer, if you're using it properly, would not apply to what I'm doing. A self-rescuer is a catalytic converter that helps a miner escape in a mine fire. It does not provide oxygen. So I think you're talking more like self-contained breathing apparatus, because I don't intend to be in any mine fires. I have no desire to be anywhere like that. Um, I do have a gas meter, and ours didn't, Chris. Maybe the new ones do. Um, but the um, the meter will only tell me if I'm getting low on oxygen or if there's a high CO or H2S or stuff like that. So it'll let me know if things are getting bad. I'm only going to be going into situations where potentially the oxygen content would be low. So that would require a self-contained breathing apparatus. And as soon as oxygen levels start falling, I'm exfiltrating post haste. So far I've never been in a situation where I had much concern over that, because I'm dealing generally with fairly small mines. Venting, yeah, that's a definite issue in some areas. Yeah, we don't have methane over here, honey bunny. For that, you need fossil fuels, basically. We don't have that in this area. Now, over in eastern Montana, different situation. What we're worried about here is something that's colloquially called in the mining industry damp. And that's where we have moisture and sulfides causes the sulfides to oxidize, which removes the oxygen from the air. If you don't have air circulation, then you've got a problem, because now you have oxygen poor air. I've never run into it, Chris, but I'm sure it could happen. Sulfur monoxide, I would imagine you'd smell a sulfur oxide. All right. So we're looking at, say my meter has hydrogen sulfide, oxygen, I believe sulfur dioxide, and methane. It's four gases. Yeah, that's not very fun, Daryl. It doesn't sound like. So I'm not equipped or trained to handle hazardous atmospheres. I am reasonably knowledgeable enough and equipped enough to detect a hazardous atmosphere and get the hell out of Dodge. Okay? So therefore, say that's my way of dealing with the problem. If we had a situation where it was important to deal with a hazardous atmosphere, then I'd have to get educated and equipped in the appropriate way to deal with that hazardous atmosphere. I probably could do it without too much trouble, but I'm smart enough to recognize at least somewhat the depth of my ignorance on the matter, and I don't like tempting fate. Eva would get most annoyed should I perish, and I do not want to annoy Eva. That can be quite hazardous. So, but I do have a meter just to double check. So far, I have yet to run into a situation like that. And so that's not too bad.
Apparently, they lost one here recently, didn't they, Brian? It was a research submersible. What, 5 people on board? Yeah, if it was in the eastern part of the state, uh, yeah, sulfur dioxide. I mean, not sulfur dioxide. Methane and hydrogen sulfide would be a big issue. Well, that's not much fun, Daryl. Were you trapped there or did you go and help them? Yeah, radon wouldn't be much fun, but that's a totally different detection system. You can use Draeger tubes for that. I'm not sure what other methods would work. There's probably something relatively cheap and portable nowadays.
Ooh.
Yeah, I've never had to deal with anything like that, Daryl, and I hopefully never have to. Absolutely.
Well, most of our mines aren't sulfides, and oxide mines don't seem to have as many bad air issues.
Yeah, well, Daryl says he was in a mine that they had a transformer blew up,
Well, that's not good.
and so 9 hours of darkness with no air circulation. Okay, Daryl says he left with the mine rescue. They were the last 9. So, yeah, things happen. And that would not be much fun. Some people, I imagine, like my friend Gonzo, he would totally freak out in a situation like that. He's
Yeah. Gonzo does not do underground.
He's not a coward, but he does not like underground. So if something went horribly awry, yeah, he's not going to be a very happy camper. So, on the other hand, I like underground. If you turn out your light, it's totally dark and everything. Some people feel very claustrophobic because they can't see things out there, and other people, like I, feel like I'm at like an empty space. Again, because I can't see anything. Well, that must be it's far away.
I love being underground with no light.
And so to me, it doesn't feel claustrophobic in the slightest in total darkness. It would be a real pain in the butt trying to exfiltrate or whatever. I would imagine it'd be quite disorienting, which is why I carry a number of separate light sources with me when I'm underground, so that I can find my way out. But
I love being in the
if it was absolute darkness, some people just freak out. Walked out a couple guys when their generator quit. We took the lighting out. You're the only one that had a light. That was really smart of them. Really, Rock? I've never heard that thing. Yeah, Kodak, I suppose it would. By the way, did anyone recognize those mushrooms in the last video we posted from top of the hill? I'm just curious. I don't know what the heck they are. I don't recognize them at all. I have no idea if they're potentially edible, potentially deadly, or whatever. Say, I just have no idea. I would agree, Chris. Kind of, sort of, Kodak. Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of fungus those were, but they did look quite odd.
All kinds of cool fungaloid things.
Chris says they looked like possibly false morel, somewhat poisonous.
Well, I do not touch fungus of any kind.
Yeah, I say I don't know. If I found something that I knew was good and safe, I'd give it a try. Eva would throw rocks at me to keep me away from her. She does not like fungus. You know, and I say I don't know. I do know that there are mushrooms that are so toxic that touching them can make you sick or dead. So I don't. If I'm not absolutely sure, um, I'm not. Doc, I do not believe so at all. Okay, they didn't look like anything that I think of as a morel. Um, so
Lauren might know.
yeah, he's not on here.
Yeah, what I mean next time we see him. Like,
Jim said not something edible. So whatever. That's possible, Chris. I've heard that some of them are that toxic, but I don't know. That's correct, honey bunny. It's an ideal environment for raising mushrooms in an old mine. Absolutely.
except for the possible toxic metals and
Or aged wine or cheese. Yeah, Brian. They certainly didn't seem to have any chewing marks on them.
what did everybody think of those funny extrusions?
Oh, and what did you guys think of the alien castings there? That we found the dirt cylinders that were laying on the ground. I think Lauren's explanation is correct. Chris does too. Chris says they get them all over around there also. Yeah, it looked very peculiar to start with, but once I figured out what I thought was causing it, it didn't look nearly bad. You too, Daryl. Biggest two, but those are just under the snow. I don't know. Okay, Jim agrees. I'll give it a try. I don't think I got notified. I should be on your channel there. Sweet blindside. Honey Bunny says it was not a vole in her opinion.
Oh, thinking some kind of an animal like a vole.
Let's see something. Let me go to YouTube. Let's see. Let me go for Rock Butcher. There you are, Rock. Pulled pork. Brisket, pay dirt. Okay. Pay dirt, huh? Okay, so let's see. It says I'm subscribed and my notifications are on. Rock, wonderful.
It's YouTube. What do you expect?
Now the problem with core samples is that they wouldn't be irregular like that. I'm thinking of rodents underneath the snow.
Besides, they wouldn't be shaped like that. Those were made by an animal.
Well, I agree. They look much more organic.
Yeah,
me
you
see.
initially said they looked like sampling, but when I found
Yeah.
a larger one, I said no.
Let's see. Did Rock Butcher's things? David Villa, couple, summer from Redacted. Nope, nothing from you, Rock.
YouTube hates us.
Yeah, good luck. Oh. So, well, let's see. It's what time? 7:40. Bright
people were
sunshine
asking-
outside.
People were asking mining questions. You were discussing mining.
No, it's not. It's not excreting it, honey bunny. It's digging, eating the roots and such in that material, and then taking and turning and bulldozing the dirt behind him or her. Don't want to be sexist here. Then going back and digging up some more, eating the vegetation out of it, and then pushing the gravel behind him. You know?
And they are just about the
And
size
you're
of-
right, it was absolutely full of gravel. Yep. That's why it looked like it was.
And that's why we're going to be sampling it and testing it.
Yep. Chris says immature sandworms with digestive issues.
I wouldn't necessarily rule that one out.
But you could also see where gouges have been taken out from the soil right there, honey bunny. I mean, there were semicircular trenches, and they were very irregular. If you were core sampling, it would be a straight punched hole. We didn't see anything like that. Nope. Blindside, apparently you didn't get notified me either.